I'm here at the BC Wildlife Park near Kamloops. And so here we are at the grizzly enclosure. This was the first one that I came across. There were two youngish grizzlies inside, just enjoying the morning sun as I came by. Bisons are next, and it was interesting to see for such a big animal that you're used to seeing in movies and etc. come up like a tamed cow to the fence when the keeper came along with their hay. Next was the birds of prey exhibit, and there's a sign now right at the end that indicates all of the birds in this case were found as a result of road accidents or injuries and could not be re-released into the wild. So that made me feel a little bit better about their small enclosure. Next we come to the Rocky Mountain elks and a few other ruminants enjoying their breakfast as well. The elks were all quite shaggy, just losing their winter coats, I imagine, and the pigs. This was a coyote I saw just hanging out in the sun. He wasn't very active. And I think that was a bobcat or a lynx in the grass. I never did get close enough. Then there was this sweet little train, all run by volunteers, that takes visitors around the park, all 106 acres of it. And it was a beautiful day, and I happened to have arrived at the park sort of first thing. And so I was on the very first train ride all the way around. And it helps you to get the layout of the zoo and what it's like. But it also reveals to you that the park itself is not very big. And 106 acres sounds like a lot. But when you take in the size of some of those animals, for instance, the elks or the mountain sheep, or which we'll see in a little bit, or the bison, it's not a huge amount of area altogether, and but they do a good job. The enclosures are all very natural and include, especially for the cats and those animals, it includes places for them to hide away from the crowds, etc. So as the train comes under this little footbridge, we come up back around to by the bison enclosure, and you can see him there in the background. I think there was 3 or 4 bison altogether. And back around the other side of the train station to complete the loop. It sort of does a big figure 8, and as I say, all run by volunteers.
The rest of the bison here.
And here we're coming around again to see the bison. And as I said earlier, they just kind of hang out like tame cows. They don't bother too much with people. And coming up, you can see the difference between their enclosure and, for example, the grizzly enclosure, which has a lot of safety and security features. There's one of them now, just up on the little hill, and they seemed quite well fed and quite happy and didn't seem to be too troubled by people looking in at them. Around the other side of the grizzly enclosure, as we loop around, we come up on the big cats. There's a moose again as well. None of the moose or elks had their big antlers, so they either don't have them or they have already been shed for the year. So that was a bit of a disappointment. There's a cougar enclosure. Didn't see anybody I know. And the lynx right beside. And then coming up again on the coyote, which we saw earlier. I didn't see any of big cats. I kind of thought maybe I saw a lynx lying down in the grass, but I wasn't even too sure. And I also didn't get to see the gray wolf. He was hiding as well on that day, but fair enough. I think I would hide too. And here are some llamas and goats and donkeys all getting fed. These sorts of pygmy goats and barnyard goats, there were some mountain goats as well, which we'll see. Here, however, is the attraction that I was most interested in. This is the Kermode, or the spirit bear. And at first I was surprised to know that the wildlife park had a spirit bear, but it makes sense when you understand the backstory, which is, as I understand it, where he was living up north in the Pacific Northwest. He looks like a juvenile. I don't know how old he is, but when you see him walking around, he seems to be in good shape but quite young. In any event, my understanding is that he was becoming a bit of a nuisance bear where he lived, and that was the only solution, as they are a sacred animal to, well, not only to the First Nations people in the area, I think to all of us, we consider them a really special commodity, a very special animal to our part of the world. And because of that, had he been just a regular colored black bear or brown bear or grizzly bear who was becoming too acclimated to humans, he would have been dispatched undoubtedly. But because he is who he was instead brought to the BC Wildlife Park in Kamloops and given a beautiful enclosure all by himself where he can live out his days peacefully without getting into trouble.
See if there's anything better over this one. Maybe this rock. Those pokey sticks can't feel very good. I feel very privileged to be this close to a spirit bear today, all by myself, to enjoy his company. Not that he cares much about mine. I should have brought some larvae had I known. And this enclosure is the natural habitat of the Canadian middle-class suburbanites. And here are some mountain sheep, mountain goats. I guess if I could yodel, I would. I don't know how they'd respond to that. Look at that little guy. I don't know what it is. Running around amongst the goats. He's got something in his mouth. Goats don't care. Let's see if I can pull him a little bit. Oh, no, I don't know who he is. He's frolicking about. He's looking back at me now. There he goes. Oh, down into a hole. Must be some kind of a marmot. Coyote. Coyote was looking right at me. Now he's gone back to sleep. Couldn't care less. Coyote in the sun.
Well, just about done my tour of the zoo. I did not get to see this gray wolf, but I certainly did enjoy the surroundings, and this is one last look back down the valley by the mountain sheep and out towards the highway. Thanks, Kamloops.